Let's talk about probability. Probability is the measure or estimate of the likelihood that a future event will happen. I could calculate the probability that it snows 12 inches or more tomorrow, or the probability that I get all of the grades in by Tuesday morning. So probability is estimating the chances that something will happen. We think about probability all the time. To really calculate probability though, we need a couple of concepts. The first is the sample space, the list of all possible outcomes. Let's first consider coins. A coin has how many possible outcomes? 2, right? It can land on heads or it can land on tails. So the sample space is heads or tails. The second concept is the event, which is a possible outcome or set of outcomes in the sample space that we want to know whether or not it will happen. So going back to our coin example, the event could be getting heads when you flip the coin. You flip the coin, do you get heads? There's your event. And then once we know the event and the sample space, we have a handy dandy formula for probability where we just express the number of outcomes for the event over the number of outcomes in the sample space as a fraction. And then you can turn it into a decimal or a percentage. So going back to our coins, we established that the sample space was 2 outcomes, heads or tails, and the event was 1 outcome, heads. So now if we apply our formula, we will see that the probability of heads is 1, the event, over 2, the sample space, 1/2 or 50%. In other words, you would expect to get heads half the time. We could also apply this to rolling a die. So on a die with 6 sides, you have 6 possible outcomes. So that's your sample space, 1 through 6. And then let's say you want to roll a 6, there's your event. That's 1 outcome of the 6. So applying the formula, outcomes for event over outcomes over sample space, you get the probability 1 over 6, or 16.7%. One final disclaimer, this formula only applies when the outcomes are equally likely to occur. So like a fair coin or a fair die. But if you have different likelihoods of the different outcomes, then you're going to need a more complicated formula, which we will talk about later.